Hey, happy Monday. Todd Father Monday, Kevin Pillar Monday. AJ and Kratz doing who knows what, but let's have some fun. We'll recap the weekend and also do some shout outs at the top here before we dive into news and what we saw. Here's one team that admittedly, guys, we're not going to do a whole segment on today, but I just wanted to give them a shout out so we don't miss them. You know, we get a lot of, I can't believe you did this show without talking about this team. Well, there's 30 teams. We're trying our best, but I just wanted to shout one out. Todd Father, I feel like this applies to some of the predictions that you make. You got to give it a little bit of time. The Mariners were off to a slow start. They went into Game 7 of the ALCS last year, a deep run against the Blue Jays, and then they were like, 4 or 5 games under for a while. They've won 6 in a row. They're going to be fine. Those are some of the names where I'm like, pump the brakes. If you're in Seattle and you saw the success last year, you're probably like, I expected this team to be 15 over 500 at the 1/3 mark. It's not always like that, but they're good.
They're very good. It's just one of those teams where at the beginning you're sitting there saying like, oh boy, is this not going to happen again? Like, listen, they have the pitching, they have the team. I mean, are they going to get 5-6 runs of games? Maybe not, but they're going to find a way to win those games eventually. Mr. Rodriguez coming through. I mean, the team, listen, they talk about the team striking out all the time. This is a team that goes about their business the right way. They have the staff. They have players that can play the game. Is it the best game to watch all the time? In my opinion, no. But they're out west. They're playing against some tough competition. The Astros are starting to play a little better. But this is good for baseball to see the Mariners do what they do. And, yeah, let's give them a little credit. They're going to go on a little run here and let them be. The ebbs and flows of the year, which people need to really understand if you're a true fan.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it was only a matter of time before this team got back to kind of the team we saw a little bit last year. And obviously, as a person that covers the Toronto Blue Jays and a team that I follow, you know, they're still going through their ebbs and flows a little bit too. But I think both of these teams kind of went to uncharted territory last year in getting so deep into the playoffs. The hangover is real. The target on their back is real. And I think it just took them a little bit of time to understand that, you know, teams are not just going to come into Toronto and Seattle and just kind of roll over. Like, they're using that as a barometer to see how successful they are. And this is a question I'm going to ask Bob later, but I kind of want to ask you guys real quick is, at what point of the season are we deep enough into the season that we believe like a certain team that is having success is sustainable? And then do we believe that some of these bad teams, you know, or teams that are underperforming, like, do we have a big enough body of work to say that's just who they are yet?
I mean, Todd, for me, it's case by case. And I think if you're looking at a team trying to make a judgment and they're 5 games under or 5 games over, somewhere in that range or between, right? Or a 500 team. I don't know if you can do much because we've seen so many instances in the past half decade where a team's hanging around the 500 range, June, July, even some getting close to August. And then all of a sudden they go on a run, guys get healthy, they get a streak going, and then that carries into the postseason. For me, to answer KP's question, it's more like the Tigers being 15-ish games under 500 and going, okay, that's going to be really tough to climb out of. This doesn't look like good ball. I know they're missing their big boy, but is this team capable of winning 12 in a row, whatever it is to get themselves back into the mix? That's where I do the judgments on the teams that are way back in terms of the 500 mark. What about you?
I don't think you could say any team, and this is my sole reason why, because I'm looking at the standings. The worst team, as you said, the Tigers, are 7 games out of the wild card, and we're not even halfway through. So I think that's the, I don't say issue, but that's the understanding that, yeah, there's some teams that are doing bad. The Orioles, they don't look really good, but they're, 1 game out of the wild card. It's insane to think there's how many, I mean, you can name 5 to 8 teams right now that are playing underperforming. So, but all those 5 to 8 teams have an opportunity to make the playoffs. So that's where I just can't pinpoint one team, but understandably, like, yeah, the Angels, 6 games out of the wild card. Yeah, there's opportunities for every single, at least American League team. And as we dive in the National League, same thing, besides Colorado. I mean, they're 10 games out, but still, I can't pinpoint one team. But, you know, I look at the Orioles, I look at the Blue Jays, truthfully, like, they got to pick it up a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, the Orioles, right. I think they just finished up a 7-3 run. It doesn't take much to get yourself right back into the mix. Okay, let's get to a couple powerhouses in the National League and recap their weekend.
He's charging the mound.
All right, we're talking Phillies and Dodgers. And KP, the Dodgers won 2 out of 3 against Philly. Fun series, a lot of star power. As I usually say with series, really in general in the regular season, do you learn about how these two teams match up? No, you just see one team going against another good team. And if anything, this could be a scary stat that's on the screen. Corey Seidman on Twitter posting the Phillies leave LA 8-17 against teams currently occupying playoff spots. Their next 12 games are against teams occupying playoff spots. For me, KP, I'm not too concerned about the 8-17 number. The team looked like crap for the first few weeks of the season, and that's why their manager got fired. And it wasn't, it was the personnel just not living up to what they usually do in a short sample size. If anything, okay, let's see what the next 12 look like and how they stack up against some good teams.
Yeah, you took the words exactly out of my mouth. I think we got to look like the season split into two. It was the pre-Don Mattingly and the post-Don Mattingly. But I think these next 12 games is going to be kind of telling of the new kind of Phillies, the Phillies that we kind of expect every year, over the last couple of years. They have a lot of players underperforming, but they've actually been playing pretty good baseball since Donnie Baseball took over. And I mean, when you play a 3-game series, it's such a small sample size, but the overreaction is as if the Phillies didn't even win a game there. They did win one game. Going to LA is a tough place. The Dodgers are the back-to-back champs for a reason, but I do think these next 12 games is going to set us up to have a better understanding of the Phillies moving forward. To me, the Phillies are probably the scariest team if they get going because of that starting pitching staff they have. Imagine rolling out, just Cristopher Sanchez and Zach Wheeler in a postseason series is terrifying for all hitters.
I mean, listen, we talked about this Phillies team underperforming, and then they dominate and then underperforming. Yeah, 8-17 against some really good teams. Let's talk about this in another 60 games and see where they're at. I feel like this team will come back. I know they play the next 12 games against occupying playoff spots. Yeah, well, guess what? In those next 12 games, it might be 5 other different teams. So not really worried about the Phillies. Zach Wheeler has been absolutely phenomenal. Sanchez has been there the whole time, had a couple mishaps. Kyle Schwarber's a beast. These guys know what they're doing. It's more of a veteran team, one of the best veteran teams you'll see out there, and I feel like they're going to be just fine.
Todd, Father, for me, the story of the series was the first game where Zach Wheeler was outmatched, and Justin Robleski continues to make a name for himself in a starting role, carrying a no-no for a while, finishing up with 7 innings of running. 9 punch-outs. Wheeler gave up 4 solo homers, so it wasn't his best outing, and Robleski is doing it right now.
Yeah, he looks really good. And, the part about Wheeler, I mean, solo home runs, Carlos Rodon was the best at that last couple of years. He giving up those solo shots. But you only give up 4 runs, you got to find a way to fight back, at least get 4 in that kind of game. You got to find a way. But I guess one of those things where when the Dodgers get out in front right now, where they're at in the season, there's no stopping them. They got the tools, they got the players. Pitching staff has been really good, and Robleski has been another bright little spot that people aren't going to say the sexiest pick or the sexiest name out there, but if you're on the Dodgers, you better fall in line. That train is moving, and it's moving towards more wins, and if you're not on that, they're going to find somebody else waiting in the wings.
Yeah, and I want to just touch on that a little bit too, because I know the CBA was a big talk, but this is a thing that the Dodgers don't get enough credit for too, is they're not drafting at the beginning of the draft every year. A lot of these players that they draft and develop are guys that are either drafted later in the first round or even later than that in the draft. So you have to give credit. Yes, do they have the ability to go out and sign the best and biggest free agent? Sure, but they also do an unbelievable job of drafting and developing too.
Yep. Oh, that's a specialty, and that's what creates part of that depth that you've got running right now for the team. All right, we're going to swing back and talk to Bob Nightengale about some big trade topics, some other big happenings from the weekend. Kratz, I know you love dad jokes. This is not a joke. Ridge's 5-in-1 travel power bank is the answer to all of your messy wires all over the place issues.
Yeah, 100%. I don't need more tube socks. I need this because somebody's going to use my phone that I fully charged and then dies halfway through the softball game that I go to. So this will lock it in, and my friend next to me who forgot to charge his phone.
Ridge makes life better. They revolutionized the wallet, right? Now they're doing it with a portable charger. It solves all of your issues. So many elite features: MagSafe wireless charging, Apple Watch charger, Lightning, USB-C, every way you need to charge, all in one premium device. The colors are swag. One thing to pack, 5 ways to power. For a limited time, get up to 40% off during Ridge's huge Father's Day sale at ridge.com/foul. Don't miss one of their biggest discounts all year. Just head to ridge.com/FOUL and you're all set. After you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you.
What have you made of some of the plays that AJ and Carson have made in the outfield?
They are great, man. They are great. They call each other psychopath, and I'm like, yeah, you guys are. I mean, it's just crazy how hard they go into the wall or running around the field. It's incredible.
How much are you enjoying just kind of being like a mentor to them?
I mean, I don't try to be a mentor. I try to be one of them, you know. I try to make them feel like they are part of this. They are the same as me. They have the same voice. They just, you know, some things sometimes we gotta help them, like, you know, to get through it. And it's first time for them being in the big leagues. But at the end of the day, I try to be one of them. I just try to enjoy the moment and have a great time with them.
That's Juan Soto talking about psychopath rookie teammates in the outfield. We have our resident outfield psychopath here today, KP. I'm sure you like to hear that.
I love to hear it. I mean, it's a great way for some young players to kind of make a name for themselves and just go out there and play hard. I think people don't understand this, that at the big league level, when you are a defensive player or when you're playing defense, that is really not supposed to slump. Like, you are expected to go out there and make plays. Pitchers make a ton of money, and you put a defense out there that's supposed to make the plays. The best way for you to kind of go through the ebbs and flows that every player goes through offensively is to be a great defender. For me in my career, being able to go out and play good defense, great defense at times, allowed me to struggle at the plate and them to continue to give me at bats. You know, a lot of people put a lot of stock in their offense when they come up, but I always try to remind young guys, go out and play good defense.
USA Today's Bob Nightengale, a little FT Insider segment here as we'll go over what's happening as we now have hit the month of June, Bob. And that means we are officially okay to talk about trades in any capacity. Okay, I know we've still got a couple months to go, but I feel like June is the official kicking off point and the headliner has come back to the mix. Bob, you received a lot of flack for an article probably about a month ago that listed a number of teams that could be sellers at the deadline and who they'd sell. The Tigers and Skubal were on there, and people were commenting, well, you can't do that. The Tigers are going to be in the playoff mix, and they picked up Fromber this offseason and all of that. What would you like to say to all those commenters now?
Well, they're going to be the biggest sellers at the deadline. I mean, whether they lost 20 or 24 now since Skubal went down, it's been a nightmare of a season. I mean, you can argue their season is more disappointing than the Mets in the fact that, you know, Tigers were probably heavy favorites to win the division, should be in the World Series, and just a complete collapse. So we'll see who else is being dealt besides Skubal. He won't be the only one, that's for sure.
Hey, Bob, before right over your notebook, before we get into the specifics of all the different teams you talked about, do you believe like June 1st is kind of like that mark of the season where there's teams that are having success, you can buy into them, there's teams that aren't having success? Do we have a big enough body of work for us to be like, that's just kind of who they are?
Almost. I mean, I think now the phone calls, take place. There's still, if you're the American League, it's like everybody's alive. American League's much tougher to judge than the National League. But yeah, I mean, you still think a few more weeks. It's not like people are waiting for the Tigers to call on Skubal. You got to call them at some point and say, okay, we'll be monitoring him. It'd be very interesting when he does come back here, should be back in a few weeks, is that, how many scouts are at his games every start he makes. But I think at this point, teams kind of get a realistic feeling like, okay, Are we really contenders, or let's shoot for 2027?
Let me ask you this question. I talked about Skubal. I said if I was a president or GM, I would give him everybody up to get this guy. I talked about that in Garrett Crochet. Now, we know there's not a lot of teams that can pick him up with what they want, but who do you think are some of the contenders that are going to be vying for a guy like Tarik Skubal?
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if the Tigers eat some of that money. By him winning that big arbitration case, it's still going to cost the team about $11 million, which is pretty high. That being said, you figure the Dodgers have got to be in the mix. I'm not saying the Dodgers need him, particularly to get Snell back, at some point late summer, Glass now too. But, you got them. You got the Yankees. I mean, I think the Yankees got them. Then they'd be the World Series favorites. Toronto Blue Jays, they'll be in the mix, you figure. You saved $350 million when Kyle Tucker didn't get to take their money, so they still got that in the account. The Padres, very aggressive. Not much left on farm system, so it might be a little bit more of a dark horse. And we'll see about the Cubs and Brewers. The Cubs already went, semi all in a year ago when they traded for Kyle Tucker and gave away some good prospects back, particularly Cam Smith. I'd love to see the Brewers do something. I mean, Brewers did it back in the day with CC Sabathia, and Doug Melvin got him the first week of July, and got to the playoffs and kind of changed their entire fate, what the franchise has become. So I'd love to see the Brewers involved. I don't know if they will or not, but they got a lot of prospects to get it done.
Two-part question, Bob. On that Skubal note, would it behoove a team to kind of go out and try to acquire him earlier than the deadline, like especially now when he's kind of hurt coming back from an injury? Would it cost a little bit less? And then I'm reading your notes about the right-handed hitters with the Philadelphia Phillies, 217, batting average, 315 on base percentage. What's it going to take for them to get Mike Trout? I know Mike's talked about being super loyal, wanting to stay in LA, Anaheim, the rest of his career, his whole career. But Philly's got to be tempting to him. It's the closest team geographically to him going back home. What an amazing story that would be for him to get a chance to play kind of in front of his hometown.
It would be, but he's just very comfortable there. I don't think there's anyone in the world. He says, "Hey, would you move me to Philadelphia?" And I'm not sure Philadelphia would take on that kind of money too. You're talking about $140 million to a guy who's been hurt an awful lot, over the years. Last thing they want is you put that kind of money into Trout, and then he's hurt again. But he's very comfortable there. It's like, hey, Shohei Ohtani, if the Angels had matched the offer, he'd be an Angel today. He didn't want to leave Anaheim. Very comfortable too. So I just don't see a Mike Trout thing. They could certainly, use a right-handed bat somewhere. Maybe they reach out to the Tigers, one of those teams that don't have a chance, or the Mets. But I just don't see Trout leaving Anaheim. I really don't.
Athletics pitching staff. Here we go. I mean, they came out nice and hot. Now they're kind of fizzling. You wrote about how you're understanding they have basically a year and a half left in Sacramento. Talk a little bit about them and, what you were letting everybody know about them and their staff.
Yeah, they just can't pitch there. I mean, I think it's in their head now, a little bit like a Coors Field type thing. And, they've been getting beat up at home. They play much better on the road. Be fascinating next week. They got home games, but in Las Vegas against the Brewers, the Rockies. So that'll be intriguing to see how those guys adjust to that. But I think in the offseason, I think the A's will be very aggressive because they want to have a winning team, a playoff team. I think before they get to Vegas in 28, that stadium will probably be ready, mid next summer. And I think they'll be telling the pitchers, hey, you only got to pitch in our bandbox, 1 year. Then you get to go to Vegas. You got to be on the Strip, no state taxes. I think there'll be a team to be reckoned with this winter.
Bob, tell me a little bit about the Chicago White Sox winning their 30th game. I know it took them till August 16th last year. We've talked about kind of the AL being watered down. Do you believe they have enough to kind of be a contender for that wild card spot in the American League?
I think they'll hang around. I still think they'll fall short. The one thing about the White Sox and, some of these other teams are surprising, like the St. Louis Cardinals, is you just went through this painful rebuild process. The last thing they want to do is throw those prospects into a trade and go for it, when realistically they're thinking about 27 and 28. I think now this shows them they're a year ahead of schedule. They love the way they're playing, but I don't see them being a aggressive buyer at the deadline just because of all the pain they've already gone through getting those prospects. Now they know they're close. So I think they'll hang around the wild card. I still think Cleveland runs away with this thing, and Cleveland's like Milwaukee. Every year nobody takes them seriously to win it again, thinking the magic runs out, and every year they get the last laugh.
I want to talk a little American League East again, talk about the Tampa Bay Rays. How about a fantastic story this has been? Nobody really saw this coming, except maybe the Rays and some other people. But talk to me a little bit about one key person that you think is why the Rays are getting over this hump and are in first place. And talk a little about this team and how they're just transforming everything and winning ball games left and right.
Yeah, I think they've actually surprised themselves, Todd. Remember when Eric Neander made those trades? It's like, okay, we're doing this for the future. When they traded Boz, when they let Fairbanks go, traded Lowe. So, they made a lot of moves building for 27 and 28. So we'll see how long it lasts. The pitching's been very good. I mean, what a pickup by Nick Martinez. 1 year, $13 million. And this guy should be in the All-Star game. He's never been an All-Star in his career, but he's been one of the greatest pickups of the winter. Really stabilized that staff, great in the clubhouse. So I think Nick's been a big key. But same thing as the White Sox and Cardinals. I just don't see them being real aggressive as and being a buyer at the deadline, just because it's gearing up for 1 year from now.
Yeah, we love talking about the trades that potentially could happen, but let's talk about a trade that didn't happen. The Nats keeping C.J. Abrams, and obviously that team's been off to an incredible start. I don't think anyone saw it coming. Do you see the Nats as a team that is here to stay, and do you see a potential for the Nats to keep C.J. Abrams long-term, pair him up with James Wood, and you got a pretty nice 1-2 punch right there?
Yeah, that's another big surprise. I mean, no one saw them being around. We got a winning record. I think it's the first time they're winning record at this juncture since 2021. Their best start since 2018. I think they dangled Abrams out there just like they did Mackenzie Gore. They didn't think they were going to trade Mackenzie Gore, and then Texas stepped up, gave him 5 prospects. They never came close to dealing Abrams. According to Paul Damoni, and he says, they love the way he's looking right now. And what Abrams appreciated during the winter was that they kept him abreast of what's going on, who was involved. They'll let him know if anything was coming close. And they said they're going to keep that whole philosophy for all their players going forward. It just makes them more comfortable instead of reading their names in trade rumors and having the radio silence with their front office. They're keeping abreast as far as, okay, who's really after me? And if anything's serious, they're going to let me know. And look at Abrams. It's the best start of his career, and he should be back in the All-Star game.
Bob, while we're on the Nationals, I'll flip it over to the American League and a White Sox team that we probably thought we were still going to talk about as sellers at the trade deadline. I don't think that's going to be the case between the start that they're off to and the state of the American League wildcard situation. Curious for your thoughts on this team now riding. I think this is their third different 5-game winning streak of the season already. They lose Murakami, which we'll talk about more later in our show, but still pick up some dubs. How much do you think the injury factors in, and how aggressive do you think this team could be at the trade deadline to try and make a wild card run, or a division run, I should say, right? Because the team's gone through a lot of pain. Do you think that Jerry Reinsdorf and Chris Getz and the front office will make a decent push, because a huge success would be this team actually cracking October again?
Yeah, I mean, if they got a freebie where it just costs money, they wouldn't do it. Say the Tigers say, okay, here's Skubal, we're just going to load his contract. That's not going to happen. But there's cases like that, I think the White Sox would get involved. I just don't see the White Sox trading away prospects. And they've gone through this whole painful process. You're not going to just trade away prospects now and go for it. And I think the the White Sox are realistic too. It's like you get in the playoffs, how deep are they going? They don't have those stud starters. Say, okay, we're going to knock off the Yankees in those sort of teams, or Seattle Mariners. So I think if they can just pay for some players to come over, they'll do that, as long as there's not prospects involved. So long answer, but I don't think they'll be that aggressive at the deadline. They're certainly not going to give up players, and they like the fact that people are coming out now to games, more money in the coffers. So I certainly believe they'll be very aggressive this winter at for free agency.
Bob, you also wrote about the potential, and I know it's been talked about MLB adding a couple new teams, and you talked about an owner saying expansion would be stupid. Take us through that, and then give us your opinion on if you think baseball should expand.
Yeah, I was surprised. I thought it was like a done deal. Like, okay, we'll have expansion here, by 2031, 2032. Salt Lake City is going to be the one in the West, Nashville in the East. There's been some pushback by some owners and executives saying, wait a minute, we sure we want to do this. We subsidized the Rays and Marlins for all these years. They said if you, when the Marlins came in 1993, that the Central Fund, they paid the Marlins $4.5 billion. And you're talking about a franchise only cost $90 million for expansion. It's a great deal for the Marlins. So I don't think they want to get that thing. Both those markets, Salt Lake and Nashville, those are the two teams. Certainly small and medium markets, they're not going to be paying revenue sharing. They'll probably be revenue sharies, recipients, I should say. So we'll see what happens. I still think it goes through, but it's interesting that it's not like 100%, or the owners are saying, we don't want to start subsidizing two more teams. And if we have a nice big TV contract, and I know Rob Manfred has talked about these teams can get maybe $250 million a year beginning in 2029. If that's the case, you really want to cut that piece of pie by two more slices.
Yeah, that's my main question for you, Bob. This to me ties into the CBA, right? MLB wants a salary cap. They say they will split the TV deals really down the middle for everyone if that happens. If we don't get a cap, and then MLB uses that to say, well, then we're not going to split the TV money, does that factor into the way that expansion is looked at, right? Because if it goes the direction of what MLB wants, and we do end up with a cap and we have TV money split, like you mentioned, the split is now divided with 32 teams and not with 30 teams. If they're not splitting it the same way, the votes probably go more in favor of expansion, right? Because then they get the money, and you're still splitting national TV money, but you're not splitting local TV money, right? There would be less to be concerned about if it's more of a, hey, everyone's still on their own.
Yeah, and I just think they got hurt by what's happened in Florida. I think Colorado's held their own. Certainly Arizona has. Tampa's been winning, but just finished next to last in attendance every year. And the Marlins, they won those two World Series early, but they haven't drawn in a couple decades. They just don't want to go through that thing. Not saying it won't have nice attendance in, say, Salt Lake or Nashville, but it's not like people are going to turn on the TV set to go watch a Nashville play or Salt Lake. Just not that big media market. So I think they got to take a hard look, like, okay, is that upfront expansion money going to be worth it? And our team's really going to spend $3 billion to get into the door, and then spend another, $2 billion or so for a stadium and launching costs and everything else like that. So, I know baseball wants to expand. I know they want 32 teams for, radical realignment, no more National League, no more American League and all that. But with the economic part, like several people said, it just doesn't make economic sense.
One more on this, Bob, because sometimes we look at sports and the rules that are in place with teams like it's gospel, like it's the Bible. But I'm curious, do you think to combat this, there's a world where they do bring on two expansion teams and they tell them you're not going to be involved in the revenue sharing the same way that we're doing with other teams? That's part of what you sign on for, right? If you believe that your city is going to be sustainable and you're going to be able to put together this massive powerhouse franchise that's going to be successful and profitable and contribute to our league, we're not going to, not sharing, that's different, right? When they're sharing TV money, I'm saying they're not saying we have to do this extra rev share money where, let's say we still have the luxury tax system, that's going to a team that's in a smaller market. I'll use Salt Lake City as an example. I don't know off the top of my head what market number they are, but I think they're going to get a team out west. And if that's the case, MLB can say, regardless of what's happening here, we're not giving you the extra money on that revenue sharing side that some of these other cities have been getting, like Cleveland and the cities in Florida.
No, you can certainly do that, Scott. I mean, I think if baseball had to do it over again, they would have contracted by 2 teams. 28 teams would have made more sense than 30. So they could put anything in that agreement. Like you said, hey, you're not going to get any money here for 10 years. Hey, if you don't start, producing and showing the revenue results, we have the right to contract you in 10 years, 15 years. So they can certainly put all kinds of stipulations in there to make sure that they just don't jump in and all of a sudden they're eating up all the revenue sharing money. I think the Marlins get about $80 million a year. That's a lot of money. So they don't want to give another 80 or 100 to Nashville and Salt Lake City too, or whoever the 2 expansion teams are. Although I do think it's those 2 teams, particularly Salt Lake. I think Salt Lake's a lock, and I still think Nashville is still the heavy favorite.
Bob, today the Pittsburgh Pirates and Chicago Cubs have an identical record. More surprised about the success of the Pittsburgh Pirates or the struggles of the Chicago Cubs?
I would say probably struggles of the Cubs. Particularly when they had the two 10-game winning streaks and winning 20, 23 games, and here they are, with the worst record than the White Sox in the same town. So just the Cubs. I think everybody in the world picked the Cubs to win the division. People do that every single year, but you thought that they would take off. I think that the pitching has let them down. That's why I think they got to dabble, at least inquire in the Skubal sweepstakes. But I think they have to get a frontline starter if they're going to, make the playoffs and make a run. I think anything less than an LCS appearance, would be a huge disappointment for the Cubs and their fans. Where Pittsburgh, you thought, okay, they made the moves, they picked up some offense, they should be around 500, and they are. I know they've had a lot of drops off in recent years, but I think this team is, who they are right now, with the record shows. Where the Cubs, I think, should be better than the record shows.
Talk about some teams in the National League that haven't been doing well. Cubs, for one. They're still right there in the mix. Talk about the AL East, Toronto, Baltimore, Red Sox. Like, this is right now, and I talked about it before if you didn't see it, but they all still have a chance to make a wild card. I'm not saying they don't have a chance to win the division, but at the same time, it's not looking that way. What say you about all these AL East teams that are supposed to be dominant teams? Are struggling right now, left and right, to get back up in the lead in the AL East.
Yeah, Baltimore was a bitter disappointment. They're starting to play better now. They had that, the massive comeback on Saturday, and came back from the dead. Toronto's kind of been a tease. Every time you believe in them, then they fall back. They've had some bullpen problems. Obviously with Jeff Hoffman. So we'll see what happens. I still think Toronto makes the playoffs. Baltimore, I think they still fall short. I think they got a lot of prospects too. I think Baltimore, if they really want to be serious about this, they got to be aggressive and go get a big time pitcher. And I think that's what hurt them in the past couple of years here, where they haven't got that marquee starter to kind of lead the way. They've kind of been nickeling and diming and getting guys in the cheap. So, but I do believe Toronto gets in there. And I think for Toronto, I think it'd be a massive disappointment for them not to even get the postseason, particularly when they were 2 outs away from winning it all a year ago.
Bob, let's finish with this debate. We're going to talk about it in the segment right after on YouTube. Cristopher Sanchez or The Miz for Pitcher of the Month in May. Usually, we don't make a lot out of a Pitcher of the Month award, but let's say you were a Cy Young voter for just the month of May in the National League. Who would you vote for?
I would do a little more old school. I would I would go Sanchez. Just the fact that he's got on the record, actually for a left-handed starter, the most shutout innings ever. Go on that. And I know Miz's stats are dazzling with the strikeouts and all that and whip rate. I would go Sanchez if I was a Cy Young voter just on that month. I bet there's going to be a cop out. I bet it's going to be co-pitchers of the month. I bet the league does not pick one over the other. It's just too close.
I agree with you. I don't think they're going to make a good decision there. I wish they would, but I don't think they will. And we just were showing the season numbers. They're both very firmly in the Cy Young race with Ohtani and others. Bob, good stuff. Great to catch up with you. We'll be talking a lot more as we lead up to the trade deadline.
All right, my pleasure. Take care, guys. Have a good day.
Thanks, you too. That's Bob Nightengale. Check out his notes column too from the weekend in USA Today. All right, this Jeff Passan tweet laid out the numbers. If you're voting for pitcher of the month and you can only pick one, no cop-outs. Cristopher Sanchez, 39 innings, 25 hits, no runs, 3 walks, 45 punch-outs. The Miz, 38 and a third innings, 14 hits, 1 run, 6 walks, 57 punch-outs. I mean, good luck. KP, you want to go first?
Yeah, considering I still don't understand FIP, I'm going to go Cristopher Sanchez. I mean, he's pitched a couple more innings, but he's on a historic run. He hasn't given up in a run, and God knows when. And I just love that he's just kind of a true pitcher. Not to take away from the Miz, obviously incredible for our sport. You know, a unicorn in his own right, but Cristopher Sanchez, man, like his story of kind of just being very average, and then you could kind of see the potential in the starter he's turned into. I think is incredible.
This is a tough one. I can agree with you, but I'm going to disagree. Miz has been absolutely fantastic. I go by the hits there, only 14 hits. I saw Sanchez, I think it was 25. Forget about the ERA. That's unbelievable. Strikeouts as well. I would go with him with more strikeouts and less hits, in my opinion. You can't go wrong here. This is what you want to see in baseball. As a baseball fan, whether you're a Phillies fan or Brewers fan or none of the above, it's absolutely fantastic. Keep that going.
Yeah. 2 different profiles, right?
Yeah.
Miz is just going to overpower you. Did you guys see the Yordan Alvarez matchup from the weekend where he went 3 straight heaters? And what was one of the pitches, I think, was 103 point something, right? We're close to 104 on 3 pitches in the AB, all fastballs, just challenge, a few different locations. It was beautiful.
It was a beautiful thing because that's, in my opinion, one of the best hitters in baseball. And the fact that he just didn't even try to fool him. He just said, here's the fastball 3 straight times. And it didn't look like he had a really good shot at it. So just imagine what the other hitters in the league are feeling. If Yordan Alvarez is not able to square him up, what do guys like myself, what kind of chance do I have?
There's an interview from the weekend, Todd, where someone's asking, what did you think of your month of May? And Miz is like, it was pretty good. And then they were like, you had a 0-2-3 in 6 starts. And he's like, I mean, that's decent.
Hey, just humble, kind of humble brag, I'll call that one.
Exactly. I like it. Confidence oozing. Hot Corner, there will be a number of injuries. It's almost like a mini Hot Corner / injuries suck segment, but the segment after this one, or the topic after this one, will be a little juicy with a player not able to pitch right now. But before that, Murakami, grade 2 hamstring strain, trying to leg out a double play. You like to see that. Of course, he's hustling. He's always hustling too, Todd Father. I mean, that's like the 10th thing you'd bring up when you're talking about him, but he busts it as quick as he can down the line, and he pulls up lame with the hammy injury, and he's going to miss probably a month and a half. That sucks on a number of levels, but for White Sox fans, this is your best player.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've had a grade 1 before, and it took a good month, 25 days to heal up, to feel like normal, and then you got to rehab and go through all of that. This could be close to 2 months. These hamstrings, and they last forever. You might feel well, but you'll always know that it's there. Hamstrings are the worst. KP's probably been through a bunch of them too. It's just they're nagging injuries, and for what he was doing, I had Kratzy on the rope there. I was saying 40-plus home runs, and now I don't know what's going to happen, man. What a solid guy. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen for the White Sox. So even though they won a couple games without him, this is a big one. It's a big blow.
Yeah, I feel for the White Sox. I feel for him. Scott, I remember in the offseason, we were sitting here having this debate about him, and we had people coming on, people that had seen him play in Japan, and we were reading all the numbers about the fact that he couldn't hit the fastball. The fact he's got 20 home runs at this point of the season is a huge loss for the White Sox. It's devastating for him. He probably was going to go on and win the Rookie of the Year in the American League, and honestly, it's a big blow for baseball because I think when the White Sox are good, it's great for baseball, and losing your best player is never easy. I know that they've been able to win 5 straight games, and he's been he's been out a couple of those games, but what an incredible start. 20 homers, almost a 400 on-base percentage and 938 OPS. I know the strikeout rate's a little bit high, but no one cares if you're striking out and you're hitting the ball out of the ballpark.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes we go too far with that narrative, right, KP? Yeah, if you're a 15 homer bat, it would be nice if you don't strike out 35% of the time. If you're a 45 homer bat, you're okay.
I mean, he's also pretty much has a 2-to-1 walk ratio too. So he's striking out, but he's also walking a ton too. Yeah. To me, a strikeout rate, like you said, if you're not hitting the ball out of the ballpark and you're not walking, I'm going to need you to kind of play your odds, put the ball in play more and hope you get a hit. But the fact that he's not super reliant on only getting a hit to get on base. I mean, he has over 40 walks and 200 at-bats. It's incredible. I think what is that? I don't know, 20. That's like a 10% walk rate, which is way above league average. And he has 20 home runs. You got to take the strikeouts as part of his game. There's certain guys in this game, and Todd, maybe you were one of those guys. When you have the ability to hit the ball out of the ballpark, you got to pick and choose your spots. I don't need Murakami with 2 strikes and no one on base just trying to put the ball in play. Continue to take your ace swing. Yeah. There's certain times in the game that calls for you to hey, I need you to advance this runner. I need you to put the ball in play. But if he strikes out with no one on base and 2 outs, we live with it. Take your ace swing.
Agree. Don't change just because of the situation. Be who you are. There might be a time where, you might have a situation to win the game. I might try and go absolutely. No. Be who you are, because you don't want nobody. I say this all the time. There's no other Tony Gwynn in this world. Rest in peace. There's no other Tony Gwynn. He could do whatever he wanted with the baseball. So be who you are. Don't try and change too much.
Yep. And hopefully get well soon. It's a huge blow for the White Sox. It really changes the way their lineup looks. And if you watch enough of this team, KP, and the impact that he was making, the ripple effect for the rest of the lineup, this was the guy. They were circling. He was changing games. The swings were clutch too, right? I mean, this sometimes can't be weighed. I know there's win probability added, but I mean, he had a lot of clutch moments already for the team with late time homers.
I would say too, I'm kind of just reading through the notes here, and obviously I saw, and I don't know him personally. I don't really follow the White Sox minor league system, but the kid they brought up, Jacob Gonzalez, had 19 homers in Charlotte this year. And I know it's a very hitter friendly ballpark, but sometimes with injuries, it kind of forces a team's hand. And the fact that they're successful, maybe they're bringing up a guy maybe before they wanted to bring him up. Imagine Jacob Gonzalez goes out and has a nice month and a half, 2 months, and then you bring Murakami back. It just adds to the depth of what the White Sox are trying to do.
Yep. Good stuff. Okay, next up, we'll get to the Pirates, an injury for them. But before that, a restricted list item that carries over from a story that we covered on Friday. Carmen Mlodzinski was not ready to pitch this weekend. Ben Cherington, GM of the Pirates, said this.
Carmen informed us this morning that he was not ready to pitch today, and so we made the decision to place him on the restricted list for today and recall Cam Sanders. So that's the headline. I'd like to work backward from that, share a little bit more context. Go back to Wednesday when the first conversation happened between Donnie and Carmen about the decision about the rotation. Going into that conversation, the decision was clear to us. We also understood that it would likely be a challenging conversation. We understood how strongly Carmen desires to start, how important that is to him, and we believe he can do that. We believe that he can be a starting pitcher and can be a starting pitcher in the future also. But we made that decision. Had the conversation with Carmen, knew it was going to be challenging. And in the days since then, we've had very consistent communication with Carmen, leading right up to this morning. And I believe we've made a lot of progress with him around what his role is going to be and how we can work with him in that role to help the team win. Confident that we're going to see him pitch for this team very soon. But he wasn't ready to do that today. And I think going into the weekend, we understood and communicated with Carmen that at some point this weekend we were going to need him to be ready, or we're going to have to replace him on the team in fairness to the team. So that's what happened today.
All right, I need a little clarity. You said you covered this story on Friday. I saw it. I didn't get going into the weeds on it, but he was a starting pitcher that was taken out of the rotation, put into the bullpen, and then they called upon him to pitch out of the bullpen, and he wasn't ready. That's accurate?
That's pretty much online. I'll fill in a couple more blanks, but yeah, I mean, he had been pitching well, right? And he's been vocal about wanting to be a starter in the past. I know that doesn't really mean much, but there's a lot of relievers that want to be starters that get bumped to the bullpen. So Jared Jones comes back. He's a young flamethrower that's going to be in the rotation for them. Bubba Chandler has not pitched well so far this year, but he's been one of their bigger prospects and has big swing and miss stuff. His walk rate has been crazy. But for Carmen here, if you're a front office and you're looking at peripherals, first of all, hard contact, low strikeout numbers, hit hard third time through, has had experience, this is the key, as a swingman. So they're adding all of this up and they're like, hey, the more natural fit for us is to put this guy in the bullpen and not Bubba, even though if we had to be weighed right now on who's been a better starter, it's definitely Majinski. So that's the context. Then on Friday, KP, he said that he would have to kind of talk to his inner circle. I'm paraphrasing, like family agent was included in the quotes there. I was actually one that was like, it's probably no big deal. Pirates fans, you should just be excited that you have such an embarrassment of riches that you're sending a 3.5 ERA guy to the bullpen. Well, I was at least partially wrong here because now he's actually disrupting the flow of the team by not being ready to pitch. Lastly, it sounds like he will be ready starting for Tuesday's game, but like he just took almost, a week off to recalibrate while he's clearly disgruntled with his role.
I don't know if you can see the disgust in my face listening to this story, but I don't know where we've gone wrong in terms of the way that players think that they have the right to kind of determine what they want to do within a team. You should just be thankful that you're up. I know you were pitching well. There was times in my career I was hitting well, and yeah, I wanted to be the leadoff hitter, but that's out of my control. You just kind of do what the organization feels like is best for not only maybe you, but also the greater good of the team. So good for them for putting him on the restricted list. You ask a guy to go to the bullpen and then he tells you he needs to talk to his inner circle. He's not prepared to pitch, doesn't want to pitch out of the bullpen. It's the only thing you can really do. At the end of the day, players care about one thing, and it's playing time and it's opportunity. Money's going to come and go, but when you take that away from a guy, it's a wake-up call.
Yeah, I mean, not to dwell on it too much, you would want him to be a team player, all first and foremost. But you also got to understand your standards. If you believe in something, okay, but there's a limit on some of these things too as well. It's a business. Played for the Pirates. Understand some of the moves they make are not, they're bewildering. They're confusing at times. And yeah, you see it with the Yankees. They didn't call up Volpe because guess what? They didn't think he was better than Caballero. They made the right decision. Did they make the right decision here? I don't know. I haven't watched him all that much, but from seeing everything else and hearing from everybody else, he was the better pitcher, and I guess he's disgruntled and pissed off. But again, this can only hurt a team too as well, because this is the issue. Every time you come and you see him, it's like, oh no, what is he going to do? Hopefully this is all taken care of and they can move forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing too is young players have to understand, like like you said, it's okay to be upset. It's okay to voice your opinion that you believe you're a starting pitcher, but an errant judgment like this to like say I need to talk to my inner circle, I'm not pitching out of the bullpen, needing to take some time off to go on the restricted list. This is something that follows you throughout your career. When you're a young pitcher and you do believe that you're a starting pitcher and you be asked to pitch in the bullpen, you just go do your job. At the end of 6 years or at some point when the trade deadline comes down, quietly he could probably ask for a trade. but this is something that's going to prevent other teams from potentially giving him an opportunity in the future.
Yeah, we'll see what he looks like. I mean, the best thing you can do now is you go to the pen, you absolutely put together 5 scoreless appearances, and then someone gets hurt, you get bumped back to the rotation, and then teams can say, okay, there's just a little blip, we're good, we're back. Because, my thing, KP, also was, I want the guy to be competitive, I want him to want to start, but then ultimately I was like, but he'll go to the bullpen and do his thing, and then I was like, oh, I guess he's not going to the bullpen, at least for a few days here. They were having a tough time convincing him. Okay, some other items, including for the Pirates. Connor Griffin hits the injured list, and the injury for him is a right elbow strain. While that's not great, and he's been off to a pretty nice start. He's not blowing the doors open yet offensively, and mixed reviews on defense. I think he'll be fine. Sometimes defensive run saved and outs above average, those kind of stats go against each other. Like, he's good on DRS, he's bad on outs above average. Usually I'm like, okay, he's also a rookie. You don't even know how to grade him yet. It's fine. Base running's exceptional. So overall, this is a loss. Ryan O'Hearn does come back. That helps a lot. He had been maybe their top bat, and he's been awesome for them. So, KP, thoughts on what goes down here? And I'll give you one more layer to consider. He doesn't say this often, so that's why I'm going to throw this out there. Ken Rosenthal on Fair Territory earlier today was like, injuries are bad, but he's a fresh 20 years old. If he was going to get a drop of time off for an injury that shouldn't hamper him long term, it's okay, because you don't want him to wear down in September when the team might be in a wild card race. And then you're like, damn, our starting shortstop's kind of running out of gas. He's never played even close to this many games.
No, I agree with him. And from everything I read, it's going to be a short 10-day IL stint. And I think he makes a good point. Obviously, he's super young. He's 20 years old. I mean, the high school season isn't that long. He barely played a long season in the minor leagues. And even he was in Toronto last week, and I think they gave him a day off on Sunday because he struggled on Friday and Saturday. So, yes, he probably has a little bit of a flare-up in his elbow, but this little mental reset, this little physical reset, I'm sure even with the elbow injury, he could probably still get in the cage and he can kind of work on his swing. But I do agree with him. It's not something that you necessarily want to do, but when an injury pops up, I do see his point in giving him, the 10 days off, mentally reset, physically reset, and allow him to stay fresh throughout the rest of the season.
So that's the Pirates and Todd Father. Now let's get to Luis Severino, former teammate of yours, I think. A's placing him on the shelf with a right shoulder strain, so that's not good. So he left his start the other day after an inning, goes back, warms up, no good. Not good.
No, not good at all. And he's usually Mr. Reliable. He'll go out there and pitch a long time too. He's just starting to come into his own, per se, with the Athletics. I mean, injuries suck. I mean, we know the headline. It's hard. As you get older, you have to maintain your body, and even when you maintain it and do all things right, you could still be that guy that gets injured. Injuries are not afraid, or they're not prejudiced to anybody. They will go after you and find you. So, poor guy, right shoulder strain. He was throwing fine. He's a guy that you could rely on, and hopefully this is just a couple-week little stint, and he'll be back fresh, ready to go.
Yeah, he was throwing better this year. He had a lot of trouble getting adjusted to the minor league facilities that the A's are using during this stretch here, but ERA was in the low 4s on the season. Yet the home road splits were insane for him last year. I don't remember exactly, but I want to say it was like 3 versus 6.5 on the home road split. So much better, much closer to what you were seeing a couple of years ago with the Mets at a 3.91 mark. And I know he had some injury issues with the Yankees back in the day, but you're right, Todd Father. I mean, last year 29 starts, year before that 31 starts. Like he had been racking up innings for this team. So KP, for me, it's like the A's are one of those teams where you got to have most things at the margins go your way to be a wild card club when you're matching up against the Mariners. And, I put the A's more in the category maybe of the Astros, maybe even still a tick behind them, even though the Astros have had a million injuries. So your thoughts on the A's chances?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a huge blow. I mean, they're not a team that has a luxury of a ton of pitching depth, right? And he was their kind of big ticket item going into that first season in Sacramento. It's a big blow because I know they're right around 500. I know that entire AL West has kind of just been right around 500. So him being out for, at least 2 or 3 starts is definitely a big blow for them.
And it looks like we're getting some breaking news here as we keep running through some injuries. Francis Romero reporting on Twitter that the Reds are planning to bring up one of their top prospects, Edwin Arroyo, in the coming hours. He's 22 years old, Puerto Rican native, a top 3 prospect on most publications. And in conjunction, it'll be Elly De La Cruz hitting the injured list. So Todd Father, he was having the best start of his career. Yeah. The hamstring, he said he felt like he avoided significant damage because he felt it right away and then kind of stopped and pulled up and then was taken out and got testing today. But he'll take some time off. Remember last year he was playing banged up and they kind of revealed that later in the year. He played, I think, all 162. And so, again, you don't want Elly to miss time, but you don't want Elly playing at 50% the rest of the year either.
No, and like we said, these things linger, and you have to maintain them each and every day, as much as the pain in the butt to come in 2 hours before you're really supposed to be in with a trainer, loosening things up, get in a hot tub, stim, ice, move it around, get on the bike, whatever it is, put some, movement into there, get it rubbed out, the hamstring that is. Like making sure everything is put together and everything's in the right motion. And for him, I think they need this guy. He's been fantastic. He's been just on the ball on everything. And, let's see what this young man's got. This Arroyo kid, man. I can't wait to see him play.
Yeah, me too. Yep. Should be one of their better prospects. Could also play third when Elly comes back and give them more offense on the left side of the infield. Let's step aside. Pete Fairbanks getting ready to go. Up next on FT.
And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Hey, let's hit Data Dish for a couple stat segments while the TV crowd is in a little break, and then we'll come back with Pete Fairbanks. Let's go to Jacob deGrom. He's pitching tonight. Opponents have a chase percentage of 34% against deGrom going back to last year, second highest among qualified starters. KP, I know you just played with him recently. I feel like we still don't talk about deGrom enough and how he's able to still create the swing and miss. There's tons of, it's Skeens, it's Miz, it's Skubal, it's all that. Man, I'm good with deGrom pitching game 1 of a playoff series for me.
I think we take him for granted a little bit. And I know he's had some injury history recently that's kind of derailed what we would have probably considered, one of the greatest right-handed pitchers of my generation and maybe our generation. But, it's part of the job description. It's very rare that a starting pitcher, goes without injury, just especially when you're a guy like Jacob deGrom who throws so darn hard, all of his pitches. But ask any one of these young pitchers, man. Jacob deGrom was probably their role model, their idol in terms of stuff and, pure mechanics and stuff. And I just think it gets taken for granted a little bit, his greatness and the fact that he's been able to come back from TJ number 2 and kind of hit the ground running. He's just one of those guys that just still kind of falls under the radar. Is he the Cy Young candidate that he previously was? But you're talking about a guy that I would want starting game 1 of any postseason series. There's probably only a handful of starters in the major leagues that I would take over him right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And just one thing, length. When he gets on that mound, the length, it seems like from 60.6 inches away, feet away, his length makes it that much more closer. And he gets some run, he gets some tilt, maybe in a little more extra oomph onto that ball and rise. And people say, but there's no way a ball can rise. I've seen it before. It's ridiculous.
A ball cannot rise. Yes, it can. I've seen it. I've seen
Maybe
some
I'm
things.
seeing things, but I've seen it rise.
That is the effect. One more I'll mix in. Jose Soriano, who I feel like we talked about a ton at the start of the year, and I know he's proven a little bit more human, but still, slugging percentage of .222 and behind in the count this season is best among qualified starters. See, that's an impressive stat to me, too. You fall behind, and you're still preventing damage.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this, too, a little bit a couple of times ago when I was on, when he was going on his run of pretty much being unhittable, but when I saw him a couple years ago and I was his teammate, you saw all the potential, but you got to give credit to Mike Maddox and the adjustments he's made.
Let's talk fish. Pete Fairbanks from the Marlins joining us right now. Let's do a phone flip too. Give me a live phone flip.
Hold on.
Up.
Better?
I think that's the one.
I kind of
We'll
liked it
see.
when you
Looks
were
like it.
sideways.
Looks like it.
That is
Yeah,
it. You
it's
nailed
not-
it. You nailed it. I've been told that it was perfect. That was the perfect flip. Sometimes we get
This
the one
whole
flip that
landscape
was.
boat thing and I are not necessarily agreeable, but glad we were able to figure it out.
Yeah, we had a nice view of the seats out there too. So tell me, how's life? What's going on for you lately with the Marlins and this young team that goes through its ups and downs?
Yeah, I mean it's a young team that's going through ups and downs. I mean that's part of it, right? It's it's not a perfect world where everything goes exactly how you want it to, whether it's on a personal level, whether it's on a macro team level. It's you got people that are working through it and improving and out here, I'm watching early work right now, just trying to, improve and hopefully eventually you see everything start to click and come together. But, right now we're kind of going through it for a few days here and then hopefully we can start righting the ship.
Yeah, speaking of a couple young players, Yuri Perez, I was watching the game versus Toronto. Kind of an emotional series. I know there was some back and forth with some hit by pitches. He comes off the mound after kind of an emotional kind of thing that happened in the game. One of the weirdest injuries you've ever seen?
Probably the weirdest. At least obviously you get off field and then you get some really weird ones. But in terms of at a game while doing something baseball related, probably the weirdest I've ever seen. And they thankfully got it. None of us knew what was going on down in the bullpen. We were able to see that Twitter video that kind of circulated after the fact. But yeah, it was a freak thing. Just one of the weirdest we've ever seen.
What was kind of the panic like down in the bullpen? Because he was cruising. I mean, he was dealing, a matter of fact. And then the phone rings and kind of the heart starts beating a little bit. Maybe not you because you kind of roll later in the game, but I'm sure you had some teammates down there like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, I don't think anybody really, had an idea of what we were working with. And then, you go from being stone cold watching a guy that's, cruising to make a couple throws, and then you got unlimited warm-ups on the field trying to get ready. So obviously that's, something that can kind of put you behind the eight ball, and it's never something that you're really expecting, especially, when you're watching a guy throw 40 pitches through 4 and punch 8 tickets or whatever it was.
Of course, crazy. Another guy, John White, made his debut the other day. Not the best. 2 innings, five runs, 4 walks, gave up 5 hits. Like, what do you do in those situations as a veteran guy? Do you talk to him and explain to him, better roads coming, the sun will come up tomorrow? What are those kind of conversations like?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, you tell them congrats, right? It's hard to be a big leaguer and any debut, whether it goes great or goes poorly, it's something to, at least appreciate and give them the due that, they've done something that not a lot of people get to do. And then, yeah, you keep your head up, right? It's that inning goes poorly, but everybody throws bad innings. It just sucks that it, might stick with you a little bit longer because it's your first. It's part of the process, and you're gonna remember it for whatever lens it is, good or bad, tainted or not. But you've done something that not a lot of people can say that they've done, and you got to at least appreciate that aspect of it.
Pete, I'm a big fan of your manager, Clayton. You obviously had a chance to play under one of the best managers in Kevin Cash. To kind of tell me the similarities and differences between Cash and Clayton.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're both pretty even, right? They're not gonna let the ups and downs of the day, take them out of what they're good at. And I think that that's something that is admirable, right? To not be able to kind of separate yourself a little bit from the roller coaster and be objective and do what you need to do to hopefully put everybody in a spot that they need to be in to succeed.
Yeah. Also, you obviously came from Tampa. You're in Miami now, kind of obviously in the state of Florida, but similar kind of markets. Are you seeing kind of, things change in Miami that kind of reminds you of, what you had seen in Tampa?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of similarities and a lot of stuff that's kind of tracking. in ways that I've definitely, grown accustomed to and seen before. So yeah, I mean, I think that Bendich is doing a really good job and putting people in good places, and then letting them be themselves and bring a ton of value to the org. And I think that even if it doesn't happen immediately, I think that the base is there to really improve organization wide.
Hey, Pete, I want to get to a couple topics, scaling around the league. So one for you that I'd be curious to get your take on how you'd talk to a younger pitcher about this. So the pitcher on the Pirates, Carmen Majinski, got moved to the bullpen. He's been pitching well as a starter. He was vocal about wanting to stay as a starter, and the Pirates put him on the restricted list because he wasn't ready to pitch over the weekend in the bullpen. So, obviously you're not there, so I'm not going to have you slice and dice. My question is more for what you tell a young pitcher who wants to start and gets bumped to the bullpen. And then now he's hanging out with you and working on Legos out there and getting ready to pitch the 8th before you go in the 9th or whatever, right? Like, how do you do that? Because you've got dirt in your spikes. What would you say?
Let's put me on the spot. I don't know that situation, right? I don't know him. I don't know how they, operate, how it was presented to him, et cetera, right? It's to make that move with, especially, if you are a very routine oriented guy, can be tough. But, it's still, you're still providing value in some capacity, and hopefully, they're able to resolve that situation. Obviously, I have it's way past my pay grade. I didn't even know that that's going on, right? We're trying to be where our feet are a little bit, but yeah, eventually you gotta pitch. And that's part of it. Obviously, we all go through our ups and downs, whether you're frustrated about not throwing leverage, you're frustrated about not starting, you're frustrated about any of it. That's all, valid, right? Nobody wants to take anything away from that. So, that's a unique situation that I don't know if I'm in a great spot to speak on, because I've never experienced anything like that.
No, I didn't mean to put you on the spot with that. I meant more like, if you've got a teammate that's like, hey, like KP mentioned, hey, there were times when I was hitting well and I wish I was leadoff, but I couldn't do it. Like, it's more like, hey, you got a young teammate in general, just putting this in a vacuum, and they're like, hey, I wish I was doing this versus that. How the veteran's able to kind of step in and be like, let me tell you how this works, kid. In 5 minutes, unfortunately, someone usually gets hurt, and then you get back into that role. So just crush it in the role you're given. Do you have any of those kind of cliche things that you drop for people?
Yeah, you usually look. Starting pitching depth is one of the most valuable things in baseball, right? And chances are there will always be a need for more starting pitching. So, I wouldn't, if that's my guy, I wouldn't be too worried about it, because there will be opportunities, to do that if that's what your calling card is.
Pete, take us through the logistics of the day that you started, because your wife was getting ready to have second or third child?
Yeah.
Third child. What was kind of like the conversation maybe the night before? Like, hey, I'm willing to pitch, but it's got to be early. I got to get home. What was that entire day like? Was your third born that day as well?
No, we had a scheduled C-section the next day. So I booked a flight out for 8, thinking we play at 1:07. I think 1:07 is that standard Yankee Stadium start time. 1:07, even if it goes multiple extra innings, we'll be good to go. And then it rained all day. And Clayton came up to me during the rain. I was like, hey, we want you to throw the first one, get out, go get back to your family and get that done. And that's exactly what happened. And then I threw a heater that Ben Rice damn near hit out of the stadium.
That's good. Hey, I'll take us in another direction. So we talked about this a lot last week, and I think we've asked you about this before, but curious, like this year, for your take on it. Where are we at with pitch tipping paranoia? Like, how much action is there where you feel like, other teams have something on one of the pitchers, on your side or vice versa? And how much, you're pretty tech savvy too. How much do you think, the tech is getting involved here, where teams are like, our AI models say that, this pinky movement actually shows his forearm with a little bit of movement here, and that's how we can find something?
if it's that subtle, there's maybe like 4 people who can find that, I'd say. I haven't, and it's a little bit different outside of the East. Your paranoia level is definitely lowered when you're not playing New York and Boston and Toronto 13 times each throughout the year. But I mean, I'm as paranoid as they get now. So I'm always, anytime you see something out of the ordinary, or you see somebody doing something funny on second base, those senses are all immediately heightened. And you're always grabbing the iPad and trying to see if there's anything that might be poking out at you.
Oh, good stuff. Yeah. We certainly obviously notice parts of it, but can't really get in on the inside of what's going on there. So appreciate the insight, dude. Have fun out there. Good catching up.
Yeah, appreciate it. Sorry for my mental lapse and
Hey, it worked out. Lucky for you, we do 2 hours live, so we made it happen.
We worked it all out. We got it done.
You're the man. Thank you, Pete. We'll catch you soon.
Thanks, guys.
All right, later. AJ, give me a line on Blue Chew.
Well, do you need help with your love life, Scott?
Perhaps.
Do you want to turbocharge your love life?
Yes.
Well, then you need Blue Chew Gold because it has 4 active ingredients that help you not only turbocharge, but you can supercharge it if you take one of these.
And AJ's talking about that new arousal-boosting formula that combines passion and performance into one tablet that dissolves under your tongue for super fast onset. No more waiting for a pill to kick in. No more moments ruined by performance anxiety. Just the results you want when you want them. Discover your options at BlueChew.com. A special deal is there for the FT fam. Right now, when you buy 2 months of Blue Chew Gold, you get the 3rd for free with promo code FOUL. That's promo code FOUL. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. Thank you to Blue Chew for sponsoring the show. And thank you, AJ, for talking love life. The process is simple and it's all online. Get started today at BlueChew.com and go for gold. Todd Father, what do you have for me on the Yankee series from the weekend? They saved all their runs in that one game for 1 inning, and then they were like, we're good. Save the hits for tomorrow after that.
That was crazy. And it wasn't like it was homer after homer. It was just hit here, hit there, error, boom, bang, 13 runs. I mean, that's when you're like, all right, well, you got your 13 runs in that inning, pretty much game over. And then they almost came back and made the game close. It ended up 13-8. They had 13 runs, and I guess that's why there's no 10-run rule. But I would love to see them put the 10-run rule after 6 innings, in my opinion. But that's just me. That'll never happen. Maybe it's part of the collective bargaining agreement coming up. But, the Yankees, they did well. They looked great on the road there, did fantastic on the road. And, you thought for a second there, they all of a sudden like, oh, here they go again. But they just do what they do best, find ways to win games. And Will Warren pitched really well, and away they go.
Yeah, they're 1.5 games clear of the lead on the AL East.
I was at a family's house for a kid's birthday party, and I just happened to turn the TV on. It was the 3rd inning. It was 3-1. And just kind of casually watching the game, and it Judge comes up, so you watch, and then he hits this blooper, and then you're kind of talking, and you're seeing the numbers and the scoreboard go up, and there's still no outs, and then Judge comes up to hit again, and then you're like, wait, did they just score 13 runs? It was crazy.
Hey, let's talk to MLB.com and Drivelines, Travis Sawchik right now. Travis, great to have you on the show to dig into some numbers here. And one of the reasons we wanted to bring you on was we reached out to you, and we love having you on, about Fernando Tatis Jr. And we're like, mechanically, what do we have here? What's going on? Now, perfect timing. He hits a 452-foot blast over the weekend from a Foster Griffin fastball heading middle in. But the question still applies. What kind of homework did you do on Tatis, and what have you seen for him in terms of the lack of power so far?
Yeah, it's wild. I'm not sure there's been a home run drought like this in baseball history for a player this talented. And you look at his underlying numbers, and he has the best bat speed he's had since Statcast was tracking it. His hard hit rate is elite, and he has this unfathomable home run drought. So the big thing is just digging in. Depth of contact is much different than previous years. His attack angle has gone the opposite way you would want if you're trying to do damage in the air, and he's closed off his stance. It's almost like he's been trying to go to the opposite field for some reason. It doesn't really make a lot of sense for a player with his ability. He should want to get the ball in the air and ideally to his pull side. So yeah, I don't know if it is. I would love to speak to him directly about this. Like, what is the plan? What are you guys doing? Because it doesn't, to optimize elite bat speed, the elite hard hit rate, all that. It's almost like he's working against trying to optimize batted ball contact. So it doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, there's some sort of, it doesn't seem like it would be an injury because all his underlying stuff is really elite. So I will say over the last 10 days, he's opened up his stance a little bit. Maybe he's making some sort of adjustments. But yeah, this is a player who should be a 40 home run threat, and he has one home run third of the way through the season. So it's a great mystery why he would change his approach. Why does he seem to be wanting to go the other way? It's a great mystery to me.
Yeah, you talked about all the kind of underlying metrics, the bat speed. He's hitting the ball hard. Like, if he wasn't hitting the ball hard, you could say, hey, he doesn't deserve to hit home runs. But I think he has one of the top hard hit percentages in baseball. If you're his hitting coach, what sort of fix do you make? Is it more about his attack angle? Is it about him catching the ball a little further on front? What would kind of be the advice you would give him if you were his hitting coach?
Yeah, just talking to some of the hitting guys at Driveline, for them, it's really, as you mentioned, contact point. Like, the contact point is deeper. It's almost like he's adopting a Derek Jeter other way approach, which, that led to a Hall of Fame trajectory too. But for Tatis, you want to, with his bat speed, 90th percentile, he should be trying to catch the ball out in front and getting the ball in the air to his pull side. And his ground ball rate is way up. His pull rate is way down. These are just, those are indicators of a contact point issue, whether that's intentional, whether there's some sort of mechanical flaws having trouble dealing with. I can't say for sure without sitting down and speaking with him, but yeah, I think to your point, contact point is the big thing that really jumps out that could correct a lot of this.
Okay, another home run hitter not hitting home runs, Vlad Guerrero Jr. I got to ask, we talk about the swing path. I think at this point in each of their careers, Tatis and Vlad, you can't really change their swing. I mean, one thing you can change is mindset, swinging at pitches in the zone, looking for a pitch you like, what you can control what you can control in this game. And he might have a season low in home runs. Talk a little about him and what's going on with this guy.
Yeah, he's had home run droughts before. I don't know that I don't think he's begun a season like this, so that highlights it. But he's always been more of a ground ball, line drive oriented hitter. It's just his home run to fly ball rates, just looking it up now, it's 5%, which is, he's never been below 14% for a full season. So that could just be an outlier, some poor fortune on balls he is putting in play. His ground ball rate's up a little bit. To your point, Todd, I don't think he's probably made any big swing path adjustments. That's what's so unusual about Tatis. He has made a swing path change, which is strange, where Guerrero has always been a little more line drive, ground ball oriented. So I bet he has had a stretch like this before, but it just hasn't begun a season. Still, I would rest the season. He can hit another 20 home runs probably if he gets that home run fly ball rate back in line with his career norms. But yeah, it's not what you want from a player who is signed to a $500 million contract. Home runs are what you want out of this guy, in addition to the other batted ball goodness. So Tatis just seemed like more of a swing path change, which is really unusual. I think Guerrero is more of a poor fortune, kind of random nature of baseball issue.
Travis, tell me a little bit about the Miz. Is he a unicorn, or is this something that we feel like we're trending towards seeing starting pitching starting pitchers being able to sit at 100 miles an hour, top out at 103.4. Is he an outlier, or is the game trending in a direction to a place we've never seen before?
Yeah, it is. It is crazy. I mean, he's throwing a 94-mile-an-hour slider, which is just, wild. It's a little Pete DeGrom like how he's just dominating people. The question is, can elite velocity arms like this hold up over a long period of time, large sample? So that's the real question. But if he maintains this, he's unhittable in any given start. And we are seeing velocity trends, of course, increase over time. Even looking at the velocities in the NCAA regional tournament, the young players, the amateurs coming up, they keep improving skill levels. They keep throwing harder. They know the incentive to reach pro ball is velocity. That's what teams are hunting. And it's not just, what's interesting is it's not just the average is increasing every year in the pitch tracking era for the most part, but it's the minimum. I've looked at pitchers year over year, max and minimum fastball velocities, and it's the floor, their minimums, that have risen so much faster than their maximum velos. So it suggests there is more max effort throwing. There is more maybe mechanical efficiency too, but there is more stress too. But there's a reason players are hunting velocity, and that's because it's hitter's performance declines when you throw harder. It's just the bottom line, and there's more spin rate with a faster arm too, so you have better breaking stuff, more movement. So all the incentives align to throwing faster. All the performance regimens are designed to create better stuff. So Miz is, he has the best stuff of any starting pitcher right now. So he is an outlier, but the overall game's trend is to have more and more arms like this. I mean, the average right-handed fastball is 95 miles an hour. So I'm old enough to remember when 95 would get your attention on a telecast or a game, but now it's just the average right-hander throws 95, which is pretty wild.
You mentioned the word mechanic. Oh, sorry. You mentioned the word mechanics with the Miz, and you mentioned Jacob deGrom. And I know eventually Jacob deGrom broke down, but do you see a lot of similarities in the Miz in terms, is it just a fast arm? Is it a big body? Or does he have very good, efficient mechanics as well?
Yeah, I mean, certainly. He also has, I think, some sort of deception to him, where he's a bit lanky, a bit he has an unusual pitcher build to some extent. So I think that might give him some deception. I think DeGrom was always renowned for great mechanics, and unfortunately that injury hiccup a few years ago. But he, for the most part, I think DeGrom's efficiency allowed him to produce. Could be a Hall of Fame career, debatable, but Miz, I think we're seeing excellent mechanics too, to be able to repeat this, to average 100 miles an hour with a fastball this deep into a season. You have to have pretty good mechanical efficiency without breaking down. And I do think we're seeing some pitchers be able to, it's not just a max effort thing. If you can improve your mechanical efficiency, you can pitch near your ceiling more often too. So I think that, in addition to more of the max effort, allows for this as well. And we have all sorts of teams have put so much emphasis on performance science, player development, and there's outside facilities like Driveline that are pushing the R&D forward. So it makes sense we're seeing these performance gains throughout the game.
Yeah, no, I was going to go along those lines too as well. You see all these young kids coming up. The bottom line is you take a guy throwing 88 to 90. He's young, coming up out of high school, going into college. Next thing you know, 4 years later, he's at 94 to 96. I just find that absolutely amazing how that can happen, and how kids can lengthen and throw balls with movement to make them throw harder. It still boggles my mind how this happens and how new of age this is in all of baseball.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, I think it starts with kind of borrowing from some of the longtime Olympic sport training methods and constrained training, and some of the some performance science that's existed a long time finally made its way to baseball, and it works. So we can debate the merits of it, but it does push performance up. It makes it a lot harder to hit. And I hear folks say, well, pitch more like Greg Maddux. Well, we looked at a Greg. we did a piece for Driveline where we scouted 10 Greg Maddux starts, ones that we could find on YouTube. And the problem with advising people to pitch like Greg Maddux is we estimated his command was 4 standard deviations better than the norm. So if you want to get away with throwing 90 miles an hour, you just have to have outlier ability. in other areas of Major League Baseball. And Maddox's stuff is pretty good too. So he's a real outlier. So yeah, it would be great if everyone had elite command and didn't have to push the limits of velocity. But those are outlier unicorn type skills too. And that's why we're seeing just this overall push for velocity, and why team here in Cleveland, the Guardians have done a good job with drafting more, emphasizing strike throwing college arms and then adding velocity to them through these programs within their system. Shane Bieber was a good example of that. Savali, Tanner Bybee come through the system. So teams think they can add this too when they get their hands on them, in addition to all the great college programs and skills being built there.
Oh, yes. I've done deeper rounds of the draft where I posted, and you're like, here's another pitchability guy in the college ranks for the Guardians. He throws 93 or 4, and all of a sudden now he's throwing 96 or 7, and he's really good. So I'm with you. It's working for him. Travis, great to catch up with you. More articles from Travis on Driveline on MLB.com. Appreciate the time, man. We'll catch up again soon.
Thanks, fellas. Great chatting.
Thank you. Hey, one more shout out like I did at the top of the show. How about Ronald Acuna Jr.'s home run binge? Todd Father, 4 games in a row with at least a homer. He's got 5 total during that span. He didn't wait long yesterday, first pitch. So he looks like he's on quite the heater. He looks like Ronald Acuna Jr. again.
He does. And making sure I'm getting this straight. They played in Cincinnati, my favorite ballpark of all time, too. I'm not saying that's why he hit the home runs, but we understand it's a nice park to hit in. I've played there for a good amount of years to understand that. But if ever you want to get hot, get in a stadium like that and just start flipping balls over. I mean, yeah, his swing path is beautiful. He's got great hands. In and out of the zone, he comes up real slow and then whack. Beautiful thing to see. We want this guy to be healthy. We want this guy to perform. We want to be talking about him because he's good for baseball. And I say it all the time. These guys are good for baseball when they're doing well. When production is high, everything else is really fun. So for him to get going again, I mean, this Braves team's been fantastic all year. Good for him, and it's a good sight to see.
Yeah, I got a chance to play with a lot of great players in my career, but I will sit here and tell you he's the most talented baseball player I've ever seen. There's nothing on a baseball field he can't do. It's just keeping him engaged every single day, defensively, offensively, on the bases. But when you talk about no ceiling on what he can do on a baseball field, it's the most talented player I've ever seen. He can throw you out from deep right field at third base. He can go out and steal 70 bags. He can go on streaks like this where he's hitting 5 homers in 4 games. Like, I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, incredible. And obviously you get him at the right time in the postseason. You know, he can help this team get to a title. He was not part of that mix. He was on the roster, of course, but in 21 when they won, remember, he was out. So this playoff run, they'll have Acuna to try and make things happen, have him involved in a playoff run where they can win a World Series title. The Braves look like one of the best teams in baseball. They were the first team to 40 wins. They got there on Saturday. And that home run on that first pitch was from Lodolo, too. I know he hasn't had a great year when he's been on the mound so far this year, but that's some of the nastier stuff that you're going to get from the left side. And Acuna handled it pretty nicely. Very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, he's so dynamic leading off the game. Like he makes you kind of think when you're a pitcher and you're in your pitcher's meeting, like, do I throw a first pitch fastball? And then obviously there's this idea if you don't throw the first pitch fastball, you're almost kind of conceding right there. But he's a game changer.
All right, what's the beef? We're going to take a different turn on this. We've covered this story a few times over the last few years during our show's existence. It's online trolls against players and when they cross the line. It's one thing to tweet at someone and say you stink. It's another thing to be threatening their lives or their families' lives. So a lot of that has popped up, over the years. It seems to be getting more aggressive. And, KP, it seems as if current players are more aggressive with addressing it and publicizing it. There's not that much they can do. You can occasionally get security, and that stuff has happened in the past. But we'll talk about Matt Chapman, Mookie Betts, Tanner Scott, and others who either themselves or through family has made it public that they're getting attacked online. We'll start with Chapman here. Susan Slusser covers this in the latest Splash Hit territory to check out, but she also wrote about it, of course, in the San Francisco Chronicle, an exclusive on the team's third baseman enduring a very poor start to the season and how fans have come after him. One of the quotes in there, people saying, "I hope your family dies." So there's a lot of that going on. KP, Tanner Scott, his wife sharing a message, and she kind of was like, "Hey, I never put anything out there, but I'm just going to show some screenshots here of what we deal with." Again, like basically death threats to the players and to the family members. So my question to you, of course, I'll get your take overall, but also it's like, is there anything that we can do here? I mean, you feel like in the way we operate from a tech perspective nowadays that we should put our best people on here and start finding out who the heck's doing this.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, but I think it starts with the players doing exactly what they're doing. Them coming out and doing this is not saying that they're weak or that they can't or they shouldn't or can't handle it, but the only way to bring awareness to what the players go through behind closed doors is to keep publicizing this. And I'm a listener to your guys' show when I'm not on, and I think it was a week ago or 2 weeks ago. Kratz reminded the listeners that fan stands for fanatic, and sometimes they cross the line into being too much of a fanatic with things going on. And I do believe betting in baseball has changed it a little bit too, where there's dollars and cents on the line and people are betting on players or props or games and stuff. And when the players don't perform, they take it very personally. But it's something we've all dealt with in our career. And it's gotten worse, obviously, because of social media being so prominent and the ability to not only access us, but our loved ones, our families, our parents, our brothers, our friends, right? Like it's happening to a lot of people across the game. So players need to continue to speak up. Major League Baseball at some point, or the Players Association, or in conjunction, need to figure out a way where we have people that can go on social media, police this, figure out where these people are, delete their accounts, do not give them access to the stadium. It's a really sad world we live in where us as players, we're human beings. That's the fun thing that, guys like me and Todd, in our post-career, we get to come on a show like this and just show that we're just normal people that worked really hard, maybe had a skill set that allowed us an opportunity to play in the major leagues, but we're human beings. We have feelings. We care. No player wants to go out there and suck and not perform, but to take it to a point where you're telling someone's wife to go shoot themselves, or you're telling someone, I hope your family dies over a game. At the end of the day, it's a game. Yes, we are going out there and we are trying to win. That is our job, is to try to win and perform. But at the end of the day, it's a game. We are entertainment. We are no different than the movie theater you try to go to or the concert that you go to. Yes, we care, but it should never get to that level.
No, definitely not. And I can only think back to when I played. I had a death threat too as well one year, and I'm sitting there like, oh my God, me, what did I do at the end of the day? And you think about it, and now you got to explain to your family. You got to tell your family at home, beware. I just got this sent to me. The security's going to hopefully take care of it, but it's on your mind. We've all been through it all. I think it's one of the scariest things to read. You read it and you don't believe it's there over a game of baseball. I don't remember exactly what I did. It probably wasn't a good game. I probably didn't help this person win a bet or whatever, or they're a big fan. But to have it done, you think about it a lot. Even, when you're just sitting in bed and, oh, man, like what happens if that person ends up, remembering and doing something else? So you never forget it, but you'll never know who it really is. Luckily they found out where the person was located, and I don't know what else happened after that, but still it's surreal, and you hate to see this from some people. It's disgusting. It's disturbing behavior, but I hope they're doing okay over there, because this isn't it. This isn't it at all.
Yeah, and I think there's limits too. That it's okay to be upset, and you could tell me that I suck, and then you could tell me that I hope I get traded or DFA'd or lose all my money. But there's certain thresholds you cannot cross, and there's certain people out there that make these threats against players, and they're probably very upset in the moment, right? And we don't know as human beings and athletes if these threats are real. And then you have to be concerned about your family's safety, your safety. A lot of times we're on the road and our family may be back at home, whether it's in our city that we're living in at the time or at home where we make our off-season home, right? And that's not the best way to probably get performance out of a player who may be struggling physically or mentally on the field. Now you add this extra layer of having to worry about the safety of his wife and his kids back home. Like, I just don't know where we've gone wrong as a society where someone would feel that it's okay to make a threat on someone's life over a game. Like, it's not a joke. Whether it's in the heat of the moment and you're writing something and you don't mean it, we don't know if you mean it. Our family doesn't know. Then we have to go out and make sure that our family is protected. We have to, either call local authorities, police. Luckily, we have, RSA and security that works within our organization and our franchises and our teams, right? But I just don't know where we've gone wrong as human beings first in society.
Yeah, it's bad, and I mean, there's often no repercussions. That's part of the problem too, right? Bad actors are going to do things if there's no punishment. So maybe that has to be looked at more deeply,
And there was a point in time where, like, if you were mentally struggling with something, it was kind of taboo to talk about, you're struggling, and the mental health part of life has become way more acceptable, especially in sports now. So I think the best thing players could do and players' wives can do is continually post these things, share these things, because I think if we get to a point where players and players' spouses and wives and kids and family members are comfortable sharing these things, it becomes a much bigger thing, and then hopefully we could find a solution to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, more policing of it. I know that's not easy, and I'm just throwing that out there. And it takes sometimes some really good investigators and tech to be able to find that stuff. But that is the way. I mean, it is illegal to threaten someone's life, period. That's a law. So if that's being done and they can find who's doing, great. I know there's many ways to try and, avoid being caught or people seeing your account, but that's really what should happen, Todd Father. I mean, I think players should keep publicizing this so that it gets the attention of legislators. And they could be like, hey, are we doing everything we should be to protect these guys, right?
Yeah. That's why you have security everywhere you go on the road. Hopefully they're on cue, ready to pounce at any minute in case something really does happen. Because every once in a while, there's always something in the news that, getting off a bus, going in a hotel. It's scary sometimes, for sure, for some of these guys.
You guys dealt with some weird stuff, I'm sure, even aside from the threats too, right? Where every once in a while. So, hey, we're bringing up outliers. 99% of the time, you guys have great interactions with fans.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, there's something weird.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, going into a hostile environment was always interesting, right? Like, it was going to come. Like, when you went to places like Philadelphia, when you went to places like New York, you knew you were going to hear it from the people, especially in the outfield. They were going to say everything under the moon at you, but the internet has really changed things right now. Like, as much as I want to keep my family life private, like, it's not hard to figure out my wife's name, my kid's name. And then when people start using those things against you, it's like, okay, we've crossed the line now. Like, say anything you want about me as a human being, as a person. But when you start getting your families involved, and I remember, man, it was probably 2014, maybe 15. I was still really young in the game. And I remember I was in Houston, and, someone was like chirping at me, like, very aggressively, to the point where, like, I had never really experienced it before. And they had crossed the line into, like, my family, my wife and stuff. And I remember coming into the dugout and telling Mark Burley, and I was kind of like scared to tell him, right? Because I didn't know how he was going to react. This veteran who's probably been through the ringer before, and he just, like, kindly asked me, he's like, who's doing it? And I was like, it's these guys up, like, in left center field, right? And he's like, I'll take care of it. Went back out in the outfield the next inning, and security was up there and removed the guys from the game. So I always remember that, and remember feeling more comfortable about kind of speaking up and telling an older guy. And like I said, it wasn't me, like, being weak, but I just felt like they had crossed the line, and, rightfully, Minute Maid Park at the time, their security did a great job of removing them from the game. And I think that's all you can do as a player.
Yeah, that's a good story. Right. You got to speak up sometimes. You can't. I know sometimes you don't want to, right? But
you have to speak up in a way of telling, your security or, a veteran player like that, because God knows what happens if someone's chirping at you and you turn around as a player and you chirp back, someone catches on video, you're looking at suspensions and repercussions and fines and all these sort of disciplinary actions. You get held to a higher standard as a player for some reason, right? When you're the player in the field and people just feel like they can say whatever they want to you with no repercussions.
Hey, we for a second, we let a couple guys get away with trying to assault a player, and then that was corrected. But I think that actually required people publicizing how bad it was, because some guys were getting, some people were promoting that. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Mookie Betts play from a couple years ago in the World Series at Yankee Stadium. I remember talking about that, and it was a hot button topic, but eventually most sane people are like, wait, two dudes grabbed a guy's arm, tried to keep him suspended like that. What are we doing? That person should never be allowed in a ballpark again, at the minimum.
Yeah, because maybe they get their 10 seconds of fame, and they feel like in some way they were part of the Yankees during that World Series. Like they made a play for the team that helped them, but what they did was not legal. They reached into the field of play, and then on top of it, they kind of assaulted the person. And for some reason, like you said, death threats are illegal to make. Assaulting someone, touching someone without their consent is illegal. We put ourselves in this stadium, and then all of a sudden we think we're in this vacuum where rules don't apply. I think that's the bigger issue, is that the same rules outside of the stadium in real life, if you went up to someone in a hotel bar and just grabbed their arm, you could get them arrested. There would be an assault charge. If you went up to someone in a restaurant somewhere and said, I'm going to kill you, that person would be arrested and they would be taken to jail. But all of a sudden we get inside of an arena or a stadium, and all the rules of life go out the window. So I think the more players continue to share these stories, hopefully it catches on and things change.
I'm with you. Good talk. Okay, let's keep it rolling on this topic. Now, on a somewhat lighter note, I would say, this was a miscommunication from the weekend. So Jesus Sanchez is in right field, and he's, got a quick exchange with a fan out there. And I'll let Jacob Calvin-Meyer, who's an Orioles reporter, kind of lay some more out here on a tweet. He said, it appears a fan in the right field bleachers at Camden Yards threw a ball at Blue Jays right fielder Jesus Sanchez and hit him on the wrist. He was in pain. He left the game. When explaining to Toronto manager John Schneider what happened, Sanchez pointed towards the right field stands. Now, there's more to the story here. It was a young fan. People said probably about 13 years old, flapping his glove, indicating, hey, let's play catch. And that stuff does happen. And, Sanchez did that. Hey, almost like oh, maybe we'll play catch. And I think the kid just was like, oh, cool. He wants me to throw him a ball. Threw him a ball, hit him. Perfect storm where it was like, oops. That was not, I guess, what you intended. The thing is, KP, you've been in the outfield. Have you ever done the play in the catch thing with a fan? Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. And you know what? I got to give kudos to Jesus Sanchez too, because he talked to the media after the game and said that it was a misunderstanding, right? And we're going to kick this 13-year-old kid out of a game who did something where maybe he was kind of provoked by the player. Like he thought it was innocent, that in fact, the player was inviting him to play catch. We're going to kick that 13-year-old kid out who barely understands the way life works, right? But we're going to have these full-grown adults just physically and or verbally assault the player, and they hardly ever get kicked out. And then my last note on that too is we probably need to find this 13-year-old kid, because Jesus Sanchez had to leave the game because he got hit in the wrist, and he left the game. And clearly he's got a heck of an arm on him with pinpoint accuracy too. So, there's teams out there that probably need some bullpen help, and maybe this kid's the next Henry Rowan-Gardner. So, make light of a kind of a weird situation that happened, but he did leave the game. He had to get x-rays. They were negative, thankfully. But 13-year-old kid, showing that type of promise and accuracy and velocity, let's find this kid's number. Let's get this kid a tryout.
Sorry, I'm laughing, but hey, you never know. Could be the next big thing. You're right. Hey, listen, it kind of looked like he was looking for it, and then when the kid didn't throw it, he turned and got hit. Big misunderstanding. I know that he talked about that. Let the kid stay in the game, man. Come on. I don't think he meant to do that. I do it before games. Like I go out a half hour before the game, stretch. Nobody's even out there, and I'm like, hey, who wants to have? I have a ball. I lob it to somebody. I make sure I know they're old enough to catch, and sometimes when not, I try and throw it a little in front of them just in case they do miss it. It doesn't hit them in the chest or head. We have fun with it. That's fun times, and now this is a memory that this kid will be haunted with, until somebody, gives him a little bit of a break. So hopefully they can figure this out and give this young man a break.
That's a good call. I bet you he'll be back at a game soon, and they'll, give him the VIP treatment and be like, misunderstanding on both sides. Welcome back. We still love you. Good stuff. All right, we're going to step aside for a quickie break.
I thought that number, maybe not in this day and age, but I thought that number was not as unattainable as the 56 game hit streak.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's even more impossible. I don't think there's any question that will never be broken in my estimate, especially in this day and age. Maybe Luis Ariz gets it done, but I don't even know if he'll play that many straight games or whatever. But it's attainable, but
well,
I mean, if he can do it, it would be insane.
Well, if he does it, it would be the Phillies exacting revenge for Oral Hershiser stringing the Phillies along and
screwing me personally.
Well,
yes, I remember that.
Hold on a second, Ruben, because I found this story in the Philadelphia Inquirer, Jim Salisbury byline, and in 1999, the Phillies made 2 free agent offers to Oral Hershiser.
Yep.
Rebuffed twice, and Winter Haven Dateline. So I know exactly what happened here. Jim's in Clearwater. Jim, you tell me if I'm wrong. Yep. Phillies are in Clearwater. You're like, I'm going to take a little ride over to Winter Haven and see if I can get Oral to say anything about the fight in Phils. And you went over there and you talked to him, and Oral basically said, he said, I'm not trying to be arrogant, but they didn't fit my priority list. The Phillies, Ruben, you offered him a lot more money to come to Philly.
Yeah, I think I was the assistant GM then. What year was that?
99?
Yeah, 99.
You were assistant GM then, right?
It was my first year as assistant GM.
Yeah.
And I remember, and then having a knockdown drag out with one reporter afterwards because he said we were cheap. And we had offered him more money.
Way more. According to Jim's story.
Way more money. And he decided he wanted to go somewhere else.
And then I think they released him at the end of camp.
Yeah, and then he went to the Mets.
Well, last week was the best week ever for us in the betting world.
Oh,
Our bad. 3 times last week, we all were successful on the same day. Kratz likes to do those parlays, Todd Father, where it's like plus 1,000 or more, right? And he was swinging and hitting yesterday or last week. So very, very nice. It feels so good to have that big check mark right there. Let's see if we can keep it rolling tonight. As you can see, there's some people playing well. There's some people playing okay. There's some people running poorly. Todd Father is up almost $3,000 on the year. If you follow everything he's doing, what are you doing tonight?
It's actually a pleasure to see Kratzy in the green. I got to be honest with you. It hasn't been like that in 3 years. I'm going with the high risk, kind of low reward here tonight. I'm picking the Tampa Bay Rays money line. It's at -160, so you got to have a little cojones to play this one. I'm going 320 to win 200. Rays just to win outright.
Okay.
Love
and by the
Rays.
way, yeah, Kratz is off today, probably, spending a little bit of that at Sizzler or something, with the little extra green he's got. KP?
Yeah, I'm tempering down a little bit because I've been swinging for the fences a lot lately, and as you could tell, I'm down $34. So I'm gonna go kind of ride the Jose Soriano train again, and I'm gonna stay in that game today, and I'm gonna take the over 6 strikeouts for Jose Soriano, and I'm also going to take the Angels scoring more than 2.5 runs off Kyle Freeland. They have the ability to stack righties in that lineup. Obviously, headline with Mike Trout. I love what Vaughn Grissom's doing. Yeah, so I'm going to go bet 100 at plus 130 and hopefully get in the green.
Okay. I'll go with the Rangers money line -125, so 125 down to win a hundo. It's DeGrom against McGreevy, which is a nice pitching matchup. DeGrom swing and miss, though, coming through to St. Louis, I think, produces some good results for him, and the Rangers offense has been super inconsistent. I think it's better when you get them outside of that ballpark, and I'll give them a dub. I think it'll be close. I think they could win by a run, but I've got them here on a 125 to win a hundo piece. So good luck to everyone on your locks tonight. And KP mentioned swinging for the fences. That's what you can do here. That's the everyday game in the BetMGM app. Just free to play. Gives you an opportunity in the app to score bonuses and boost tokens like a $50 bonus bet, or you could win a parlay boost token. You play as the batter, select an area of the strike zone. If you get a hit, you win a prize. It's that simple. Gambling problem or concern, there is help. Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Before we wrap this segment up, I just want to talk a little bit about Carmen Misiorowski.
Yep.
I agree with what Mark said. The Pirates bullpen. Before we wrap this segment up, I just want to talk a little bit about Carmen Misiorowski.
Yep.
I agree with what Mark said. The Pirates bullpen is in a much, much better place with Carmen Misiorowski, to the point where it's like, if they have a lead after 6 innings, I'd just give him the ball for the 7th and the 8th. Even after 5, I would be comfortable giving him the ball for the 6th and the 7th and maybe the 8th, depending on what the lineup looks like and unless they're like stacking lefties against him. I mean, he is a really, really good relief pitcher. Someone who can is proven to be able to throw multiple scoreless innings of relief, and he will make this team better. All that said, I feel for him for this move, because it's not necessarily fair. He has not been their worst starting pitcher this year. Not even close. I mean, the Pirates are 2-9 in Bubba Chandler starts this year. He leads the National League in walks. He's got an earned run average over 5. Now, Bubba, obviously a friend of the show, he has way higher of a ceiling. He's younger, and he has the potential to eat innings because he will have less workload restrictions, you would assume, than Carmen, who's been in the bullpen primarily his whole major league career, and the rest of this rotation, who has a lot of like injury concerns or whatever. But right now, Bubba's not getting it done. He would even admit that. And I don't think that moving Bubba to the bullpen makes the team better. I think he would be more of kind of what they already have going for them, is a guy who is kind of overthrowing right now and might be in his head a little bit, and they don't need more of that. So I get why. And you're not going to option Bubba Chandler right now. So I understand why it is, but this is an unfair spot for Carmen. It just is what it is. For sure. That needs to be mentioned.
Hey, did you guys see this from the weekend? The little ABS error? Dallas Braden said, I believe this is the first ABS operator error. How in the world can we be asked to accept a clear error? We're going to start challenging challenges. How do we just how are we justifying taking a challenge away from a team when it's clear there was an error on the ABS operator, bad form? And, a lot of people were like, oh, it's just one time that it happened. And that is true. I mean, it's not like we're seeing this very frequently, but also, Dallas was just calling out. I know it's only one time, but still, he's like, what if this happened in a playoff game or one of those big moments? Let me see the other tweet that he said that I was pulling up before. But your thoughts here, guys, while I find that?
Well, it leads me to wonder how the ABS system works. Like, is there an actual operator where, like, if the ball misses the rectangular strike zone, they're inserting ball or strike? Because if that's the error, then it's unacceptable. You would think the technology would be like, if the ball is inside the box or is touching the box, then it would just come up ball or strike. But I don't really know what the operator means.
I think it malfunctioned from what I know. And so then they just kind of did like a call stands thing. But
can't happen.
But then,
just can't happen. Bottom line.
Yeah.
Well, even if it does happen, like you said, it's only happened once. It's still new technology. Like, they're still getting kind of used to the thing. But like, if it's visually showing up on the scoreboard in the stadium, like, there has to be umpire discretion. Like, okay, they said it was a strike, but the ABS system is clearly telling me it's not in the zone. Like, he should have the ability as a human to like be like, whoa, I know they're buzzing me and telling me it's a strike, but really it's a ball. So I think that may be something that has to be implemented into the ABS is the umpire is visually watching the board too. And if it comes up wrong, then he goes, wait, hold on a second. He's got his little microphone, be like, there was an error in the system. As we all see in the stadium, it didn't touch the box. It's a ball.
Yep. And, we got to jump in a second from the TV audience. We're going to keep going like we do online. So we'll keep running the show on YouTube, and I'll get to the next tweet. So Dallas in the next tweet said, at the very least, the A's should have had their challenge returned with the ability to see there was a mistake made. Imagine a postseason game with this happens, team losing because of a glitch or miscommunication, even with evidence to support a correct call. He said, because it's made, no big deal. Every pitch in every AB and every game, all that.
Yeah, he's right.
Spot on. Yeah.
Spot on. Yep.
Yeah, and I think even beside the ABS system, I think that's the reason the ABS system was implemented is because the importance of every pitch in a game. Before we had these rules and regulations to, challenge the authority of an umpire, that's the reason we brought this in is because, they're humans, they're going to make mistakes. But as Todd knows, when you're hitting, whether it's your first at-bat, your third at-bat, the score's lopsided one way or another, all these at-bats matter to us. So if there's an error and you feel like it's wrong, we now have the ability to say, hey, I don't agree with your call. We're going to challenge it. So it just speaks to the importance of every call in a Major League Baseball game. And
just to provide the full context here so I could bring it up, because, you're watching a lot of games over the weekend. I didn't remember the exact situation. It was Soderstrom on a pitch from Ryan Weathers. Played up Adam Beck, ruled it a strike on replay. It was clearly outside of the zone by significant margins, about 0.8 inches low, but the system appeared to experience a delay. So his strike call was upheld. So the usual graphic showing the location never showed up on the video board even after delay. So it's possible that it glitched out there in the minor league ballpark, which may have meant the review process then defaults to the umpire's call of the original strike one. So again, then now this is me speaking. If that's the case, then you say, hey, technical glitch, we're going to revert back. They keep their challenge. We'll try to fix this in the meantime, because Mark Kotze spoke post-game. Yeah, Todd, Mark Kotze said the explanation on the field was the umps were told from the comm upstairs that the call was confirmed. Obviously, they didn't have access, so they only have access to the information told through their earpiece. So, you can't say they should actually say no, call is not. That's not call confirmed. That's technology broken. Just can't challenge that one.
No, exactly. Give it back to them. Here, you tried. We screwed up. Here it is, right back to you.
Yep,
yeah, now that
exactly.
you mentioned it, I remember seeing this because I was watching the game where they scored 13 runs, and I think it was the next inning, but the sound was off on the TV. And I remember there being a delay. And then when you brought this up, I was wondering if this was the same play, but it seems like a very easy fix. Like the umpire has a microphone now. He could just say, hey, there was a glitch in the system. Call stands at home plate. No challenge awarded or denied or nothing. Like they remain their challenge.
Yep. I'm with you. Maybe we'll make a segment out of it. Tomorrow, Ken Rosenthal, Matthew Boyd, Aaron Ashby. Dodgers territory hopping on right now. If you want to watch that show on their YouTube channel, see ya.